Okay, here we are with a really quick tutorial on mixing. At this phase of our process of doing the audio for our film, we're basically preparing all of the audio, all of the tracks that we're going to be playing, so that they play nice together, so that when we listen to this, we can hear what we need to hear, and everything is at the proper level. And we're going for that all-important clarity so that we hear what we need to hear. And so the final step is using the mixer. And the mixer is what basically, it's like plumbing. Let's just think of it as plumbing. That's going to be our analogy. It's how we pipe the sound through the speakers. So it's all laid out here in separate different tracks, but what ultimately is going to happen is each one of these might represent a separate channel, let's just say a channel of sound, but by the time it gets through our speakers, in the case of what we're doing, it's stereo, everything mixes down and mixes into only two channels coming out of your speakers, left and right. But here, this is a separate channel, this is a separate channel. These are each their own individual channels. In some cases, this over here, this strip right here is several channels. I think it's like 5. So mixing is about how all of these sound sources mix together into a final mix so that we can hear and understand what's going on. So what we need to do is flip over to our mixer here, and this is what allows us to control how things mix together, how the plumbing works, how we get all of those individual strips of sound mixed together through only 2 channels of audio. Left and right stereo right here. So let's just start here. This is called the master, and basically this is what this is the final step. This is the spigot out which left and right stereo comes out our speakers. So whatever leaves this master strip comes out of our speakers, channel left and right. So it's a stereo. You'll notice that it's stereo. There's left and right here. So everything kind of ends up here and leaves through the speakers. So let's just see that as the final spigot. Now here what we have is a channel strip. This is a channel strip, and each of these is a channel strip for each track that we have here. So here we have Dialog A. That's a track. We go to our mixer, and there's Dialog A, and this is that track's channel strip. Now let's continue with our analogy of plumbing here, and right here up here this is called the source. This is where our sound is coming from, okay, and input. So it says none, but it's Dialog A. That's what it is. If we want to change the source, we could go over here and change where the audio is coming from for this channel strip, but we don't want to mess with that. So it starts here, and let's just follow the flow of sound as it passes through this channel strip. So it starts here at the top as input, and then it passes through this effects, it passes through a send, it passes through equalization, more effects, okay, and then this is like automation and effects automation, and then it passes through its gain control, so we can control how loud it gets, and then it gets to the bottom here and it gets sent out of the channel strip to the master. So right here it says master, and boom, it goes out this master here and out our speakers. Okay, this master is what mixes all of these pieces together. How much sound coming out of this channel strip is what's mixed together here. So each one of these channel strips controls the flow of sound from the track into the master. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to show you how we can change the flow of sound so that we can have a little bit more control over things. For instance, if each of these dialogue tracks, I wanted to add reverb to them because they were all speaking inside of some sort of space where we needed some reverb for it to sound natural. I would have to go to each individual track and add a reverb, okay, to each track. All right, I'd have to add this to each track and adjust these settings, and then, okay, I got that one, and then I'd have to go over here and okay. not necessarily the best way to go about it, especially if I could just do it once. Because then if I wanted to make an adjustment, I have to go to each one of these and make a little adjustment to each one of these. Not an effective way to work. So what I want to do is create what's called a submix. That means I want to have a channel strip that controls that each of these dialogue tracks pipe into this one strip, okay? And then from that one submix, it goes to the master. So what I want to do is I want to pipe all of these into a separate submix track, a submix channel strip, so that I can then put an effect on that strip, and it affects all of these sounds equally. So let me show you how that works. Now, I described before the flow of sound going through this channel strip. It comes in from the input, which is Dialog A track, and it passes through this channel strip, and it leaves and goes to the master. Well, what we want to do is we don't want it to go straight to the master. We want it to go to a separate bus. Now, a bus is, I was calling it a submix, but really what it is, I hate mixing metaphors here, but we're busing this sound to a new place. Okay, so let's just follow this here. Now, because this is a mono track, and each of these are mono tracks, we can send it over to a mono channel strip here. Now, let me just move this over here so that it looks like we can follow the flow of things a little bit better. All right. So when the sound enters Dialog A, when it enters its channel strip here, it flows through this channel strip, has its gain adjusted, and then it flows out of this channel strip to bus C. So then it leaves here and enters the top of bus C, and it flows through this effects, this send, this automation, and then passes through its gain control, and then flows to the master, and then it goes into the master and out through our speakers. So now we've got this passing through a new strip, a submix here. Next, what I want to do is I want all of my dialogue to pass through this strip. So all I need to do is for each dialogue track, I go down to where its output is, and instead of it going straight to the master, I want it to go to my bus C. Now, I could change this. Let's call this Dialog Submix. So Dialog Sub. So now you'll notice that this has been updated to Dialog Submix. All right, so each of these dialogues I want to go to the submix. This is going to the submix. And this one's going to go to the submix. So now I've got all of my dialogue tracks going to the submix, and then from the submix, it goes to the master. Now, watch what happens. I'm going to hit play so we can hear what's happening here.
I want you off my property now. What's going on? You can't stay here. I told you.
I'm going to do something real quick so we can really hear what's going on. I'm just going to solo just the dialogue so you can hear that. Oh, excuse me, so that you can hear that. So let's try that again.
Vacate that room. Come on, man.
Now, to show you that all of the sound from this channel strip is going now in through this submix before it goes to the master, when I turn the volume all the way down on the submix, I should hear nothing, because all of the sound is passing through this submix channel strip. So I hit play again.
Hey! I want you off my...
Okay, I turn this channel strip all the way down. Now these channel strips are still at 0, okay, and they're clearly still have sound pumping through them, but nothing's coming out the master because we've routed these channel strips. We've routed the sound through this submix channel strip before heading out to the master, and we've got this set to 0. Or negative infinity in this case. So we'll bring this back up.
Hey!
Okay, so I was going to show you a quick way to sort of get this back to 0. if I click this, if I hit, what is it, shift click, Command 0, okay. I just control click the slider, control click and choose 0, and it snaps back to 0. It could be, you know, a really handy way of you know, getting things back to 0. Now, what I want to do is, the next step is to level off each of these dialogue tracks so that they all have equal volume out this master, so that you know, I want to balance all of the dialogue. So let's go ahead and just kind of run through this.
I want you off my property now.
What the fuck is going on here, man?
You can't stay here. I told you to vacate that room.
Come on, man.
So Peter's dialogue is a little hot.
Hey!
So I want his to be a little hot,
I want you off my property now.
-6,
What the fuck is going on here, man?
You can't stay here.
-6,
I told you to vacate that room.
a little
Come
still a
on,
little,
man.
okay. And you know, what I'm going to target is -6 for each of these dialogue tracks. Now, when we mix, it's important to understand, you know, we don't want to mix this too hot, meaning we just don't want everything just so loud and as loud as can be. Our primary goal is to make sure that the audience can hear dialogue. They have to be able to understand what people are saying. And the way we gauge, you know, how loud things should be based off of how loud the dialogue is. And so the first place to start is, obviously when you're mixing, you need a really good mixing environment. That means I need good speakers. You know, a lot of the times they, you know, not a lot of times, but professionally, they mix in a movie theater. You know, basically, I got a mixing board and my monitor, and you know, and I've got the surround sound system that you would typically find in a movie theater. You mix for the environment that you're going to be displaying the movie. So. But in this case, I've just got a couple of computer speakers. So what I want to do is start with, you know, just the dialogue and what sounds neutral and clear so that I can understand them. And I only need to make it as loud as it needs to be so that I can understand what they're saying. It doesn't need to be any louder than that. And then all of the other sound is going to be mixed around that dialogue at that level that I set with the dialogue. So we start with the dialogue, and then we continue mixing around what people are saying. So I'm starting off with just the dialogue, and I'm going to balance it out so that they're all at the same relative level. And I'm shooting for -6. That was a little hot, so I'm going to bring it down.
I want you off my property now.
That's close enough.
What the fuck is going on here,
Not
man?
quite hot enough.
I told you.
Now, you know, this is at 0. You know what? I'm gonna shoot. I don't want to go above 0. 0 means I'm not amplifying the sound, because that's gonna start bringing up noise level, and I'm not attenuating. So it looks like this is my baseline. I'm gonna try to match everything to this recording level, which means I got to bring this other stuff down because I didn't quite get to -6. So I'll bring this down a little bit. I'll bring this down a little bit. I'll bring each of these down, and let's see where.
Vacate that room.
Come on, man.
Hey!
That's -6. It can be a little bit louder because he's yelling.
I want you off my property.
This needs to
now.
come down.
What the fuck is going on here, man?
You can't stay here. I told you to vacate that room.
Come on, man.
And then he yells up at -6. So we can start the yells at -6, but everything else needs to come down. Well, you know, you're getting the idea here. Now that I've got this mixed, you know, or balanced, I probably could tweak this a bit more, but now that I have this balanced, I now have this slider to change the overall, all of them at the same time. I can make them all a bit louder, all a bit softer through this. You know, if when I start mixing in other things, I want to be able to change all the dialogue at the same time. I want to bring the entire level of dialogue up or down. I can now do it with this channel strip or this submix, instead of having to go back through here and raise or lower each one of these individually. That becomes tedious. This is a much smarter way to work. And as before, if I wanted to add some effects to all of my dialogue at the same time, for instance, let's say add an EQ to it because I want to, you know, pump it up a little bit, I'll go down to my EQ, and now that all of these tracks are now passing through this submix, they're all going to pass through this equalizer before going out to the master. And so I just have to add this effect one time. So go ahead and play so we can hear it.
Hey!
Go ahead and bring this up a little bit.
I want you off my property now.
What the fuck is going on here, man?
You can't stay here. I told you to vacate that room.
Come on.
So this is the higher frequencies, this is the lower frequencies. Okay, I might want to go ahead and put a high pass filter. That means you know, anything at the really low end I want to get rid of. So low frequencies. This is dialogue. I don't want to hear anything else.
I want you off my property now.
What the fuck is going on here, man?
You can't stay here. I told you to vacate that room.
Come on, man.
Hey! I want you off my property now.
What the fuck is going on here, man?
You can't stay here. I told you to vacate that room.
Come on, man.
All right, so you get the idea, right? I've added an EQ, trying to you know, basically richen the frequency response of what they're saying. Because sometimes in a recording, I might have nice mid frequencies, but my high frequencies might be cut off, or my lows might be too big. You know, the EQ is really just there to kind of flatten things out. But I'm adding it here. If I wanted to add reverb here, I could do that, you know, and it's going to affect every track equally. So this is a CPU effect. Let's go ahead and play this.
I want you off my property now.
What the fuck is going on here, man?
So you'll notice that this effect is affecting all of these dialogue tracks, even though we've only added it to one channel strip. That's the submix. I'm going to get rid of this because, you know, I don't really want that. All right. And it's also not really the best place to put a reverb, and I'll explain why in just a minute. But this is, you know, this is how we create what's called a submix. Okay, this is a very effective way to work. I might want to create a submix for my sound effects tracks. I might want to create a submix for all of my music tracks. You know, obviously, you know, the bigger your mix is, the bigger, you know, larger number of tracks you have, the more convenient creating submixes will be. It's the smart way to work. Let me explain one other way of working, and this is called a send. And it's a little bit different than a submix. A send is, as it passes through this channel strip, the sound, so we start here, you'll notice that we have this arrow. This means it's coming in, going through an effect, and here is the send, and look at the little icon it has. It looks like it's splitting the flow. So I still have some passing through the rest of this channel strip, but from here it redirects the flow of sound somewhere else. So what I could do is I could split this channel strip, this source of sound, into two. Okay, it's almost like a Y connector. So some of it continues down through the channel strip, and some of it continues on to wherever we send it. Well, where can we send it? Well, I can send it to another bus. So what I'll do is add bus mono. All right, this is bus D. And I'm going to go ahead and leave it right next to this, because now this channel strip is being sent through here. And let's call this dialog send. And so some of it is passing through the rest of this channel strip, and some of it's going through this send, and from this send it's going out to the master. So basically I've split it into two. So this is, some of this is going in, well, in this case, let me just change this back to master. Okay. So this is dialogue, is some of it's going to the master, and some of it is being sent over to here, and then this is also going to the master. Now, why would I want to split a sound into two separate channel strips? Well, here's where I can have a lot of control over if I want to affect the dialogue and I want to be able to mix it with the original. So here's the original going through and out to the master, and I can put an effect on this send here. Let's try reverb. So let me add the reverb here. And okay, we'll go with that. And let me just go ahead and make this pretty wet sounding. Wet means how much effect there is. And dry is how much of the original is passing through without any effect on it. And I'm just going to set this to 100%. So it's got 100% reverb effect and 0 of the original. And I'll show you why I made this choice. Oh, come on. Okay. All right, so let me go ahead and just sort of play this. Let me do this. I'm going to move this over here. I'm going to move this to the end of the dialogue, okay? And I'm going to change all of these dialogue tracks. For now, I'm going to route them back through the master because I want to show you how this effect works and how it's different than the submix. Okay, so now all of these dialogue tracks are now going straight to the master again. This submix is not controlling anything anymore. And I have a send here. So this track is being sent to the dialogue send, and I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for the rest of these. So what I do is I'm going to be mixing a portion of each one of these audio tracks in through the send, okay, and the send is going out to the master. So now what I'm going to get is a portion of just this, of each of these being mixed together here, reverb added to it, and then being sent out. So let me do this. Remember before when I had the subgroup, when I brought the slider all the way to 0, we heard nothing. There was still, we could clearly see that there was activity, sound on the level meters, and these sliders, the gain sliders here were up, but we weren't hearing anything because this one submix was controlling gain. Well, let's watch and see what happens when I do it to the send now. If some sound is still going through to the master here, we should, when I bring this all the way down, we should still be hearing things. Let's see if that's the case.
You can't stay here. I told you to vacate that room.
Come on, man.
I'm bringing it down. Let's see what happens.
I want you off my property now.
We still hear things. When I bring this up, listen.
I told you to vacate that room.
Come on, man.
You'll notice that when I brought this fader up, it sounded like I was adding reverb to it. Well, that's because we are. Up here, just a portion of the sound from each of these dialogue tracks is being piped into this send, and we're adding an effect so that we put 100% reverb, wet, meaning all effect, and 0 dry, meaning none of the original, because our original is right here. We don't need the original anymore. We don't need any dry because this is providing all the dry sound. We just wanted this little send here to provide and mix in some of the wet into our final mix. Why is this a good way to work? Well, because here I can raise and lower the amount of effect here without having to dig into this reverb plugin. I can just adjust the amount right here with just this slider, and as you know, that's just an easier way to work. Okay, so that's the difference between a send and a submix. Now, how do I add this back into my submix? Well, here's what I do. I can just change my output, go back to here, and go to submix, 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 and now all of my dialogue tracks are now I'm getting some of it sent to this, and then the rest of it goes out here and goes into my submix, and from my submix it pipes through the submix here and then back then to the master. Well, here I had a parametric effect here, the EQ. Do I not want to EQ this? Well, I could send this through my submix as well. So now it's passing through my submix. Now this is doing exactly what it did before. I control the amount of reverb that I add to my mix, but it's all being sent through this submix here, and I can control everything from right here. And it gets EQ'd. Now I'm EQing this sound after it's had reverb attached to it. Is that something I want to do? Maybe, maybe not. You have to make some decisions about that. If that's not the case, if that's not what you want to do, you might want to sort of arrange this thing and pipe it, pipe this stuff differently. So there's certainly more complicated ways of routing the sound, piping the sound through the speakers. There's different ways of mixing things together. These are some just basic strategies that I'm showing you right here. So the next step is also, let's just listen to things. Now I'm going to turn my reverb all the way down because I don't really want them to have any reverb. And better yet, let me just go ahead and get rid of this. It's slowing my computer down to have this plug in here, but it's being routed through here. It's just nothing's being done to it.
I want you off my property now.
What the fuck is going on?
So I'm going to add put my helicopter back in here, and we're going to have to basically adjust the gain. So what we want to do is bring this gain down.
Come on, man.
Bring it down so that it doesn't compete with the dialogue as much. I still need to be able to hear what they're saying. So here we go.
Hey!
I'm going to put it at -24.
I want you off my property now.
What the fuck is going on here, man?
You can't stay here. I told you to vacate that room.
Come on, man.
Okay. I could still hear what they're saying, but I definitely could hear the helicopter. Now, how loud do you want to make the helicopter? And, I certainly have some room to play with in order to just, I can hear them. I could probably bring this up to -12 and still be able to understand them, but that might be too loud and distracting. Another strategy is if I don't want sounds competing with one another, what I need to be able to do is basically frequency masking. That means frequencies, when they're played on top of each other from different sources, they mix together and become muddy. So dialogue is between 500 and 2,000 kilohertz, or 500 and 2,000 hertz, and any other sound in that frequency range is going to compete with the dialogue. So what we can do is eliminate or reduce the amplitude of sound in that frequency range in other sources, like this helicopter. It's got sound, some of its sound is in that same frequency range as dialogue. And what we can do is add a EQ and remove or reduce the sound in that frequency range, the amplitude in that frequency range. So between 500, which is right here, and 2,000, which is right here, I want to reduce the sound of the helicopter. So I'll just take this and create a little dip. Let's listen to that.
Hey! I want you off my property now.
What the fuck is going on here, man?
You can't stay here. I told you to vacate that room.
Come on, man.
Okay, let me bring this helicopter up, And let's see how much louder we can get and still have clarity in our dialogue.
Hey! I want you off my property now.
What the fuck is going on here, man?
You can't stay here. I told you to vacate that room.
Come on, man.
You know, I basically, went from -24 to -12. Let's go up to -6 and see.
Hey!
I'm going to toggle this on and
I
off.
want you off my property now.
What the fuck is going on here, man?
You can't stay here. I told you to vacate that room.
Come on, man.
You can clearly hear as I toggle this on and off how much clearer, how much easier it is to hear what they're saying when I turn this on compared to when I turn it off. Now, it definitely changes the sound of the helicopter, but it doesn't seem to make it any louder or softer. You'll notice that the helicopter seems to be the same volume, but they are much easier to understand. Let's do this again and listen to this. And I'm going to put this up to -3.
Hey! I want you off my property now.
What the fuck is going on here, man?
You can't stay here. I told you to vacate that room.
Come on, man.
Now, that's too loud, but you can still you really hear the difference of how creating this little dip in the frequency range between 500 and 2000, where the dialogue is, I create a little drop in the amplitude of that frequency, and the dialogue is much clearer. So I'm going to keep this on, and I'm going to drop this down. I think -12 is probably the right place to go. Seems loud, but it doesn't really interfere with being able to understand the dialogue very much. This is some canned laughter. Let's go ahead and add this music in here. And let's mix this in. And really, you would follow the same strategy. I would go ahead and leave it at 0 and bring it down to where I don't feel like it's competing with the dialogue. How is it mixing together with the helicopter sound? And obviously this music is going to have sound in the same frequency range as the dialogue. I might want to go in here, add an EQ right around, right in that same range between 500 and 2000 K. I might want to drop the amplitude in that frequency range a little bit just to make things a little bit clearer in the dialogue. And I should end up with a mix here that sounds a whole lot better than what I started off with. That's basically the basics. Okay? And of what mixing is and the final step. And obviously you can see that there's method to the madness of why we split tracks with the dialogue, because we can now manipulate each of these tracks. Each of these tracks would correspond to a unique camera angle. It could be more than one cut. In this case, because this is very small, it's just one cut per track. But if the scene was if I played the whole scene, you would see that each track would have more than one cut on it. But I could affect each track individually. Like if I wanted to, this particular camera angle, I wanted to tweak the EQ a little bit for just that camera angle. I could put an EQ here and just tweak it a little bit. If this track here, Dialog B, had a little bit different noise to it and I wanted to attenuate that noise, I could put a noise filter just here and it would just tweak just that track. So the way we set up here initially when we started at the very beginning of the quarter was really leading us to this point, getting organized so that when we got to mixing, we had the most latitude to do what we needed to get done. Okay. All right. So that's it for this week. Obviously, your assignment is to take this scene, what I just showed you, and do what exactly I just did here. Start with the dialogue, bounce it out, create a send, create a submix, and then add in the sound effects here. And ultimately, what I want to hear is your final mix, your master at 0. I don't want you mixing. You want to touch this last. You always want to leave this at 0. And see how well you can get this stuff to mix together. If you want to add some different music, if you want to put some different sound effects in there, please be my guest. Have fun, and we'll see how you did.